I never lose, either I win or I learn. Those are my only options, to whomever it may concern. About to be a hot topic, play with fire, you get burned. Ain't nobody give me nothing, whatever I got, better I earn. I never lose, but I learn. I either win or I
Thank you for
learn.
listening to the
Those are my
Strong
only
AF
options.
podcast.
This episode is brought to you by our Weight Loss Transformation Masterclass. After spending over 30 years of my life being obese and dealing with chronic constipation issues, I decided to get my certification in fitness, nutrition, and wellness to empower myself to lose over 70 pounds and keep it off.
Watching my brother and dad have a heart attack within weeks of each other, I knew I had to make a change, but I wasn't sure what to do. After researching and studying to get my certification in fitness, nutrition, and weight loss management, I was able to use this knowledge I gained to lose over 80 pounds and keep it off.
Now we're passionate about helping others to avoid the same mistakes that we made and changing the world through holistic health and wellness. So our approach is focused on mindset because overall health, including our mental health, means everything to us.
Imagine waking up with more energy than you imagined possible, no longer worrying about digestive issues and bloating.
We're here to show you how to ditch the fad diets and make small changes in your lifestyle, which will make a massive impact on your quality of life.
These are changes that you will be able to pass on for generations to come. Go to veganstrongandfit.com/masterclass today to sign up for your free masterclass and get started on a happier, healthier journey.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Strong AF podcast. I'm Ashley.
I'm Yuri.
And today we have a special guest on, Nika Lawrie, who is a certified high performance health coach, behavior change specialist, and clean living advocate. She's an entrepreneur and host of the Health and Hustle podcast and founder and CEO of healthandhustle.co, a lifestyle and media company that is dedicated to creating products, content, and services, all designed to empower you and your best life, natural health for the modern hustle. Welcome, Nika. It's so great to have you on.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about how you got into this, because you're pretty much all encompassing health.
Yeah, so I have a very crazy story that goes in about 50 different directions. But the kind of short and narrow version of that, I think, is two major things. One is that I worked in the entertainment industry for a long time, and it's real kind of hustle and bustle. I lived in New York City and Los Angeles. I was working 50, 60, 70, sometimes even 80 hours a week. Wasn't eating well, wasn't taking care of myself, in the way I should. A lot of kind of grab and go meals, so a lot of kind of fast food. I tried to still do like I'm air quoting here, the healthier versions of fast food, but that's still kind of relative.
Mm-hmm.
But I did that for years and years. And what I found was that I was really starting to burn out. I just didn't have the mental stamina that I used to have. I didn't have the passion anymore. And so that really started to kind of trigger some awareness for me for kind of health and wellness and, reconsidering what my priorities were.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually moved back home where I grew up. I grew up in Albuquerque, Mexico, and that's where I live now. So I moved back home to kind of just reset and kind of figure out my life. And I started working at the Alzheimer's Association, which is a large nonprofit dedicated to Alzheimer's and dementia. And I worked for just shy of a decade, and that really opened my eyes to the importance of health and wellness as it relates to chronic diseases, especially as it relates to dementia. And I will tell you, dementia is probably the scariest disease there is. I know like cancer and heart disease and all those are really terrifying, but to lose yourself, lose your identity, and lose your memories and your connections to your loved ones while your body is still alive is really, it's devastating to watch it happen to people. And so that really sparked a lot of kind of interest in I got to take care of myself. I got to reassess what my priorities are. So that was kind of one part. And then the other part was that I had a pretty dramatic delivery when I had my daughter. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she was born with a pretty rare heart condition. And through all of that, I really started to see the importance of taking care of my body as well, and health and wellness. And then I got really into healthy eating to prepare my daughter for, a good life, especially with her heart condition. It was really important to me to provide the best resources and food and all those things for her I could. So those two together really kind of combined and drove my get to where I am today.
That's awesome. What an incredible story.
Mhm. I can
Thanks.
definitely relate with the dementia, having a grandfather when he started losing his memory and stuff, or he would do something and forget midway through like what he was doing or misplace things, and seeing him getting frustrated and stuff like that. So I can definitely relate to that, how sad it is.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I mean, it's just heartbreaking to see, especially our loved ones struggle with it. And, treatment or cure prevention. And so right now, the best thing we can all do for ourselves is eat healthy and take care of ourselves.
So after you decided to make this transition for yourself with the better lifestyle, better eating, and your new career, so how did that change your life?
Well, it's been kind of a journey, and it's still a journey, but it's been extremely transformative. I feel so much more passionate about life now. I had this pretty corporate job. I was a head of development for the nonprofit for the state of New Mexico. So I was working like crazy. I was traveling all over the place in the state, and then also to different things around the country. And, I started to really assess how I was spending my time, and again, what my priorities were. And so once I really made that shift to focus on my priorities and focus on my family and my health and wellness, I really started to see changes, not only physically in my body, but also in my mental health and how I felt about the world every day when I was getting up, like whether I was excited and passionate about getting up and doing my job, or if I was, dreading getting up and getting dressed and going to work and those kind of things. And so it really made a huge shift in just my energy and excitement for life in general. So I think that was the biggest thing. And then also just changing the way I ate really changed how I felt throughout the day. So my energy levels, my focus, it really helped my, just my body, kind of the digestive system and how I kind of processed everything, and my skin cleared up, all kinds of things happened. So it's really been an amazing process, and it's extremely transformative. So I've been excited about it and excited to continue on the journey.
Yes, it's amazing just how small shifts even can make such a huge impact. And I feel you on the digestion. And I know that we talked previously on your podcast about this. And, digestion is a huge thing. And yes, I've had the constipation issues, but what comes out of that too, it's not just the constipation, because your gut health affects so much more in your body. It affects your immune system and everything. So it's like once you clear that up, then your whole health just changes.
Yeah. And you feel better. Like I know it sounds kind of silly, but you feel lighter. You feel less like dense and stuff. And, when everything's flowing. And I know it's kind of a taboo thing. Nobody wants to talk about poop, but it's a really important thing to talk about. And, once you figure out like, oh, wait, this isn't normal. Like I shouldn't be this way all the time. And you feel what it feels like to not be that way. You're like, oh my God, why didn't I do this 20 years ago? Yeah.
And it is taboo to talk about poop. And I feel like people really hate that. They hate the word. They hate that bodily function. They get embarrassed over that. And I hate that because having been through the situation where I was severely constipated, I mean, when they took an x-ray, I was literally compacted up to my chest.
Oh my goodness.
So having been in that situation and I mean, I remember as a kid, I would be embarrassed to have to go to the bathroom somewhere. And so, you know what you do? You hold it.
Hold it.
And that causes so many more issues. And the fact that we don't normalize this and we make it such a disgusting thing, like nobody does this, you're the only person who has to poop. You know, because of that, I think it causes so many other issues, and it starts in childhood.
Yeah. And it's so funny to me because when I think about that stuff, I'm like, nobody feels taboo about talking about having to pee. Like,
Exactly.
we'll go pee in the bathroom and like talk to our girlfriends
Yeah.
through the door or something. But poop, on the other hand, like, no way. And so it's funny that it's become such this thing. And I love that you mentioned as little kids, like we learn to hold it in, and that's like instilled in us. And so even as we grow as adults, I think that's still like, you know, when is it appropriate to go and when is it not, and who's around us, and there's all these things, these social things that go around along with it, when in reality the best thing we can do is just push it out of our body. So yeah,
exactly.
I got a funny story about this since y'all brought up poop. A guy I know, a buddy of mine, we talk about just about anything. I don't remember how it was brought up, but somehow we brought up poop and everything. And he was telling me that his wife, she may go, maybe a week or two without pooping. And I remember after hearing that, I was like, oh my goodness, that's just awful. Because I don't know, because like when you used to have your issues and everything, she would get upset because I'd be going 3 or 4 times a day, and she maybe
I would go daily,
days.
and I was like, I'm going daily and I'm still constipated. So I couldn't imagine not going 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. I mean, and just the havoc that wreaks on your body as well. It's heartbreaking.
It is.
Yeah, because when he told me that, I was like, oh my goodness, what is she eating? And he's like, is it that serious? I said, yes, it's that serious. she shouldn't be going a week or two without going. I was like, does she drink water? No, she doesn't really drink water. She drinks soda. I was like, have her drink a lot of water.
Yeah, probably severely dehydrated.
Yeah, and people don't realize how simple changes can, help that. Also, on this side note here, our son had issues with wetting the bed for a long time. Turns out he was constipated because the way that it sits, it's pushing up against the bladder. So
the pressure,
yes, the pressure is up against the bladder. So it's going to push out the bladder and it causes accidents. So you think, okay, we were always told like, don't let him have water past a certain time. Well, he wasn't drinking enough, and therefore he wasn't emptying himself, and he was having bedwetting accidents.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how everything kind of relates there.
Yeah. And it is funny because the things that we learn from like kind of the general knowledge of society often tend to be like the complete opposite of what we actually need to be doing for our body. And like you mentioned a minute ago, there's a lot of like really simple things that you can incorporate into your life that really can make a huge difference. Like drinking water, as silly as I know lots of people struggle with just the idea of drinking water, but it makes a profound difference in a lot of the issues that we're having. So the brain fog, the headaches, the lethargy, the constipation, all those things, those come from dehydration. And I think it's something like 92% of Americans are dehydrated, like on any given day. And I mean, that's terrifying.
Yes,
and so, if we can just reset that little bit, just make that little bit of a difference, it can be, a huge change over time.
Yeah. And speaking of small changes, like what are the small changes that you use with your clients to implement?
So each client's different. I'm a big believer in kind of bio individuality. So everybody's different, literally like every body, let alone everybody is different. And so it's really specific needs for those people. But there are some general kind of topics or thing pretty much everyone can do that can really help. Drinking water obviously is a good one. Usually what I try to teach is to start small, like you mentioned. So, if I have a client coming to me that's basically living off of sodas, which we see a lot, just replace one soda a day with a glass of water, drink water with lunch or something, and that's it. And so we start small, and then, they do that for a month or so and kind of get comfortable with that. And then let's replace 2 a day. And then we get them to the point where 99% of what they're drinking is water. And so it's small changes. It's those little habits over time, because what you see often is, it's very rare that, and I say this with excitement because I'm looking at Yuri, it's very rare that people can just quit things cold turkey. People can quit cold turkey, but it lasts for maybe 3 days or 7 days. You'll see a lot of people fall off the wagon at 10 days. That tends to be a kind of that 7 to 10 day period is where people start to kind of struggle a lot. And so, if you start small and do those little shifts over time, it doesn't have the same mental scariness, I guess, for, lack of a better way to put that. So starting small, making those little shifts. The other thing is just adding one vegetable to your day each day. So if that's, having a salad for lunch, or adding a vegetable, when I say vegetable, I don't mean like microwaved, cooked, covered in butter, kind of old soggy thing. Right. I mean like a real, like just eat a carrot. Or make some asparagus or steamed asparagus or something, just one vegetable a day, and start making those shifts. And then if you can start to continue to add those things over time, it really does start to add up quite a bit. So it's really not this scientific, super scary, I have to know everything. It really is just deciding I'm going to make these little changes. And then over time, those things really build up. If we're talking about constipation, I don't know how we got on this whole poop thing, but if we're talking about the constipation thing, the other thing that I would say is eat fruits and vegetables that have the fiber in it, opposed to like buying, what's the drink? It starts with an M. Miralax, I think, is the fiber drink. Yeah. Those they might work for some people, but the reality is that you need the nutrients, the rest of the nutrients that come with the fruit or vegetable alongside the fiber, for the fiber to actually make a difference. And oftentimes the water that you're drinking with those mixed drinks is actually more beneficial than the fiber that you're getting, because again, people are so often dehydrated. So yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah, the same buddy I had mentioned about, who was telling me about his wife, because I would tell him little small stuff, little hints and tips and stuff like that. And sometimes I would tell him, I'd see like he's not really paying attention to me. But then I started talking to him about his Mountain Dew, like what's in his Mountain Dew and stuff like that. And I would joke around with him, ask him if he ever eat any fruits or veggies. He's like, nah, man, I don't really like that stuff. And then the more I kind of got on to him about it, I came to work one day and I see he has like some grapes and stuff over here and cantaloupes. And I'm like, oh, what's this? He said, yeah, man, you've been getting on my nerves. He's like, you don't think I'm listening. He said, but I'm listening. And drinking water and stuff like that. And then maybe like 2 weeks pass by and I see him again. He's like, yeah, man, I just feel better. He said, I have so much energy. My mind's clear. And he said, I just feel good. I don't feel tired all the time. I was like, see there? You thought I was crazy.
See, and that is the whole thing, is that, he started with grapes and cantaloupe, and, start with something you like, and then try something else, and then try something else. Like, just keep going from there, and understand that health is always going to be a journey. It's not necessarily a destination. You're always going to have to work on your health. And so if you just keep taking little steps, you're making progress. And that's, people have this image of like, I'm going to get healthy. Well, what is healthy? Like, you get healthy and you have to continue to be healthy. Right. So, taking out the idea of that it's a destination and adding in the idea that it's a journey makes it a lot less intimidating to get started.
Yeah. And I think this is another place where those weird societal norms, like what they've put on you, comes into play, because society gives you this idea of healthy, that it's this salad with nothing in it and just water, and you have to be completely boring to be healthy. And so people try to go this extreme way And then they're going to fall off because obviously it's not what they're enjoying, but they don't realize that you can just customize small changes for yourself, like you were talking about, and you don't have to be this extremist. And that's what's going to be sustainable for the life term.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Even though, I mean, I am a huge clean advocate. And what I mean by that is really focusing on taking out the toxins, all these chemicals that are in our foods, or GMOs, you know, there's like 80,000 chemicals in our food and clothing and things we put on our body, like shampoo and lotion. And most of them have never been tested. So I'm a big believer about being aware of those things and removing as many of those from our, you know, daily life as possible. But there's also things that for me, there are things that I still love that I want to do. And so like an example is I buy Bath and Body Works lotion, and it's full of a fragrance that I have no idea what it is. And it's probably toxic, but I love it and it makes me happy. And so I'm, you know, 95% really good about keeping toxins out of my life, but I make exceptions for things that bring me real joy. And I think if you're doing really good 80, 90, 95% of the time, fantastic. The other percent, just enjoy life, find things that bring you joy and don't worry about it. You know,
Right.
like, you're never going to be perfect and there's no point, you know, it's progress over perfection. It's doing the best you can while still enjoying things in your life. And so,
yeah. And I think it's
that wiggle room.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the same way across the board too. You know, our health, our fitness, our finances is the same way. So, I mean, if we were to be as strict with our finances as people think we have to be with our health in order to be consistent, we would never do that. We would go out and splurge because we would drive ourselves crazy not doing any kind of entertainment or things that we love. So, like you said, you have to find that balance of things you really enjoy, and it's like I must have, I can't let this go, but I'm going to use this in moderation, versus this is what I'm going to do the majority of the time to keep my body in check.
Exactly. Yeah. A good example, like you just said, that I do. So I'm really careful about the food that I bring into my house. So I try to buy as organic as possible, as much as possible. I really try to support local farmers too. I think local agriculture is really important. You know, I read all the labels on my food. And so I take caution and care for the food that I bring into my house. But then I also like to go out and eat. And so, you know, I don't know what's in the food when I go to different restaurants. I try to eat at home probably 80% of the time. But I want to have fun. I want to just go enjoy doing things. And so, you know, when I say eat out for the last year, it's been carry out, bring home food. But, you know, but when we can all, you know, go back to restaurants and live a normal life, I plan to do that. And so it's again, finding that comfort level and that balance that you're at. And maybe 89% isn't what you're comfortable at. But if you could do 60-40, that's a fantastic change, you know what I mean? And so, and I guarantee you would feel the positive effects from making those changes.
Exactly. And I know a lot of our clients, like they always come to us and they're scared to tell us how many times a week they eat out because they think we're going to like reprimand them. And I'm like, no, because this is your life, right? And you're not going to stop eating out for the rest of your life.
Right.
So what I want to do is to help you learn how to make healthier choices and decisions and have that knowledge and understanding so that when you do go out, you at least understand what you're putting into your body and you can make that decision based on what you want. And with that understanding though,
there's an app that I'm obsessed with. It's called Holy Cow. Like HOLLYCOW, Holy Cow. And it's got a purple cow on it. But the app, I don't know who created it, but it's genius. The app you can use to find vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free options at restaurants across the country. And so it gives you like a GPS of like different restaurants that are in your area that provide those types of meals. And so what I love is that I will look up and see what restaurants are in my area and go try something new. And so even though I'm eating out, I'm still leaning towards healthier options. You know what I mean? It's still delicious, amazing food, and it's fun to, you know, not have to cook. but I'm still bringing in vegetables and healthy, nutritious food. And so it's a great app. I love it.
That's awesome. I will definitely be downloading this as soon as we get off of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had me once she said vegan options. I was like,
Yeah, it's a great app, definitely.
That's great. So can you go deeper into your clean living? Because I know you're a huge advocate on that too.
Yeah. So I think, over the years, the more and more I've researched it, and, I've watched way too many documentaries and I've read a ton of books on it and done a lot of training and education around it too. And it gets to a point where it's like terrifying. Like, I don't really want to walk out my door sometimes because I'm like, oh my God, there's toxins in literally everything. But here's the thing is that I think there are 4 or 5 things that most people need to understand about the toxins that are in our lives, or how they're kind of hidden and put into all the stuff that we're putting in or on our bodies. One of the bigger ones is GMOs. So people are back and forth on GMOs, so genetically modified organisms, and whether they're healthy or safe or not. And what I've really come to is that, I kind of think we're taking a weird step into kind of playing God, if you will, with genetically modifying organisms. I'm not sure that's a role that we as humans first have the mental capacity and capability to understand how we're changing life and the universe and all those things. I worry less about the organism being modified, though I do think that changes the DNA inside the organism, and that we may not be getting the same type of nutrients and stuff that we would have had it not been modified. The bigger thing that really freaks me out about GMOs is that they are covered in chemicals.
Yes.
So like the seeds are literally like sprayed blue or bright green or bright red. Like a corn seed is like neon blue. I'm sorry, but corn is not neon blue. Not be that color when it goes into the ground. And so, the seedling that our food is coming from is literally already doused in chemicals. Then on top of that, modified to either resist chemicals or withstand chemicals that are being sprayed onto them, and they're absorbing into the food. And when that's processed, then we eat those chemicals. Or the thing that people tend to miss is that that food is then turned into meal and stuff that's fed to animals. And so oftentimes the meat that we eat has been fed those chemicals, and then it filters down to us as well. And so, a lot of those chemicals are really connected to cancer, heart disease, dementia, autism, behavioral health issues, issues with infertility and with development in children. And so, it's a big experiment right now. Like, we have no idea what we're really doing to ourselves. And it's only been in the last 10, 20, 30 years that this has really been pushed. But it's important to know that, 80 to 90% of the wheat we eat, the corn we eat, soy that we eat, are genetically modified organisms. And so it's really hard to avoid them at this point, and we have no idea what they're doing to us. So GMOs are a big thing for me. I think that the other kind of 3 things to know, or 2 things to know, is I mentioned earlier about chemicals. So there's about 80,000 chemicals known to man. About 1,200 of those, it's somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500, have actually been tested on humans, or tested for human safety. So 1,200 out of 80,000 are all we know that have been tested. And the laws that regulate those were put in place in the 1920s and the 1930s. In 100 years, even though science and medicine and all this stuff has, changed drastically, laws that regulate those chemicals have not. And so once again, it's a science experiment that we don't know what's actually being put on our bodies, how it's affecting our bodies. We don't know what we're putting into our bodies. And the hidden way that they're hidden in everything is that whenever you see the word fragrance or perfume in lotions or shampoos or laundry detergent, those kind of things, that is any number of chemicals. Like, it could literally be 1,000 chemicals listed under the word fragrance, and manufacturers do not have to share what that is. They don't have to tell you what those chemicals are. So we don't even actually know what's in these products.
And coming from the e-commerce world, because I've had to do a lot of stuff with the new California regulations, regarding the chemicals. And it's crazy because even if there's a known amount of chemicals in that product, they only have to list 2 of the defects that can be caused, not even all the chemicals or all of the defects. They only have to list 2 of the defects on there.
Yeah. And it's like, it may cause, like, it's not even like, this is going to give you cancer over, 20 years kind of thing. And then the other place that it's scary that it's hidden is in our food. So when you see natural flavors, it's the same thing as the fragrance. It could be, maybe it's salt, but maybe it's not. Like, we don't know what those natural flavors are, and they don't have to tell us. And that, I think, is a huge issue that is really concerning to me. I think we have the right to know what we're feeding our children and what we're putting into our bodies and how that stuff affects us. And so that's why I'm a big proponent of reading labels. If it has natural flavors listed on it, I try to avoid it. If it's got a word that I can't pronounce or I don't know what it is, I try to avoid it. You mentioned Monster earlier, or maybe it was some energy drink, I can't remember. But I grudgingly bought a friend of mine an energy drink the other day because she unfortunately had COVID and she was sick at home. And so I put together a care basket and left it at her door, but she loves energy drinks. And so I bought her an energy drink, and I was reading the label while I was walking to the checkout. And I literally could not pronounce I had never heard of a single word. There wasn't a single word in the label that was actually a food product, like, or fruit, like a thing you would identify as food. There wasn't, even sugar, like it was something else. That was terrifying to me because, our kids are drinking this stuff. Right. And so, so it's really, I try to be really cautious about those things. And I really try to drive that home with my clients as well.
Yeah, that's incredible advice. And it's terrifying. And like you said, watching all these documentaries, it does kind of freak you out a little bit when you learn everything that's there, but it's needful information that we really need to educate ourselves on. And I think a lot of, especially our family, they kind of go a little crazy when I'm like, but in this documentary, and they're like, oh, here she goes again. But it's like, I want to educate myself, and I want to know what I'm putting into my body, and I want to know what's going on. And so I want to stay educated. And I know a lot of people, they know it's going to be scary, and that's why they don't want to watch it, because they don't want to know kind of what's going on and going into their body. But I feel like if we continue to hide from it, then we can't change it, right?
Right.
That's the thing
exactly.
about
I think
the GMO. That's crazy. Because when you were mentioning that, I remember there was a documentary we seen talking about the GMO and how they even went into details about, like, if a bee comes over here and pollinates the GMO and then takes it to the organic, then the organic then becomes GMO with all the chemicals and everything that's on it. It's just crazy how that can spread.
Yeah, and the thing that gets even worse from that is that a lot of the organic food is now being turned into GMOs from the pollination like that. Even just the wind can pick it up and cause that to happen. The other thing to understand is that there are tons and tons of other countries that have completely banned GMOs, and America has not. Like, we're one of the only industrialized countries that actually allows GMOs, specifically in food for humans, let alone food for animals and stuff. But there are, dozens and dozens and dozens of countries, including countries that are in third world settings, that have banned GMOs. So the fact that America has not become educated on this and gotten our act together to step up and say, no, we don't want to eat this stuff, I think is something that really should be brought to the forefront.
Yes.
I believe Haiti is one of those foreign countries,
Yes.
because I believe in the
Mhm.
documentary they were trying to ship them maybe like 2 tons of corn or something like that, and they really
Mhm.
didn't want it. They was like, no, we'd
Yeah.
rather starve before we deal with that. Just with the chemical that's in the seed and what it does to the soil, where
Mhm.
they can't use that soil for it's just crazy with all the GMO that's in it. And
Yeah, I
if you
think
go organic, you can
I'm
continuously
guessing
plant
you're
seeds and stuff.
talking about GMO OMG. I think
Yes,
it's a
that's the one.
documentary.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great one for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean the fact that, Haiti could see this coming and could, say, no, we're not doing this. We care too much about our families and our history and our well-being and our future, that, why can't Americans do that too?
Mhm. And we also overuse the soil as we're planting and growing crops because, we're not only feeding ourselves with the plants, but we're feeding the animals, and the animals consume so much more than humans are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, my dad, he is a Christmas tree farmer, and once they dig up the trees, they can't use that soil again for 7 years. And we know that they're not doing the same thing with the crops.
Yeah, I don't know the exact years, but I remember hearing that. I think we have 60 years left of crops in the United States, like of cycling through the crops. So what happens in 60 years? I mean, that's our life, let alone our children's lifetime. What happens? How do we feed people? How do we, what do we do then when the soil is so depleted and so destroyed because we've used all the nutrients out of the, we've run it through so many times, but also we've added so many chemicals that we have, like in the documentary, they talk about the super bugs and the super weeds and all these things. We have all these chemicals. What do we do then? And so if we don't start acting now, if we don't start making now, and the way we make changes is with our checkbooks, our checkbooks are old, but our wallets, our debit cards, that's how we make those changes. We demand healthier, clean food. If we don't do that now, we're going to be screwed, and our children are going to have even less.
And people talk all the time about how organic is more expensive, and it is, but it is because the demand is lower. If we make the demand higher, then the roles reverse. So that's what we have to do.
The other thing to keep in mind now, I know not everybody has access to this, and that's something that I also really try to focus on, but farmers markets and community gardens and those kind of things really can offset the cost of organic food. And the other thing that you can do is, even if you don't have access to farmers market or community garden, go into your grocery store and tell your grocery store manager, I want affordable organic food. And if enough people keep asking for it, they will turn around and start selling it. And so if you live in, a food desert or a place that doesn't have organic options, start asking for them. And if enough people step up, you'll see changes.
That's great advice.
I don't know. We may have interviewed someone else about nutrition or something like that. And it just, as we were going down this road, I remember, was it the Tony Robbins podcast, or Tony Robbins was on someone's podcast, and they were talking about feeding billions of people and trying to pretty much just basically like clone animals or something like that. Have you heard about that?
I don't know the details. I have heard that they're considering doing animal cloning as a food option. I have pretty serious concerns about that, just because, I think two things. One, it goes back to, we're kind of playing God again. And I'm not sure humans are, I just don't think we're smart enough for that. Like we can figure out how to do it, but we aren't really looking at the long-term consequences of it. But the other side of that is that when you clone DNA, whether that's plant or animal DNA, each time you clone, the cell loses a little bit of its kind of vitality, its structure. And so with that, especially in plants, you lose a little bit of the nutrients that comes with that. And so if we're cloning over and over and over and over again, what is the quality of that food going to be, 10 clones down or 20 clones down or 30 clones down the road? Like, it's not going to have the same quality food. And if humans are already sick from the food that we're eating right now, we're dying of heart disease and cancer and coronavirus and all these things, because of our health, because of the way we're eating. What's that going to look like from, GMO meat as well as GMO plants? So, yeah.
Yeah, that honestly terrifies me to think about.
Me too.
I don't want clone chicken or clone broccoli. It's just crazy.
Yeah, at that point, eating a stem of broccoli is the same as eating a processed anything. I mean, it's the nutritional value is not there, and you don't really know what's going on with the cells in there. It's crazy.
I mean, even now you can see it with if you eat like a typical store-bought strawberry versus, you plant a little strawberry bush in your backyard and eat those strawberries. The color difference and the flavor difference is, it's night and day between them. And so even the food that we're eating right now doesn't have the same nutrients and, flavor and just spark to it that real home organic natural food has. So I think we've already kind of lost a lot of that.
We have. And that's the thing, is we've kind of gotten everybody so comfortable with, well, it's okay to be a little different. It's okay to be a little different. And so when we go to these extremes, or what I consider an extreme, then it's kind of normalized.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be.
Exactly.
We should all be standing up saying, no, you don't get to kill me one bite at a time.
Yes.
So,
yeah. So you also, you have lots of work that you do with clients. Can you tell us how our listeners can find you and work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I have a website called healthandhustle.co. So CO. You can also find me at nikalawrie.com. Both of them provide tons of resources on clean living and green living, and just other information as well. You can also check out my podcast. You guys are on there. Your episode's coming up soon, so I'm excited to have you up. But that is called the Health and Hustle Podcast. And then I provide coaching as well. And so I do a free 30-minute coaching session with anybody that wants to sign up. So totally free.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. We'll include all of your information in the show notes too. Awesome. That way they can easily access you.
Perfect.
But before we go, we've got some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay. Let's do it.
Weights or cardio?
Cardio. I mean, I think weights are super important, but I like cardio better.
Favorite fruit?
Really, really good strawberries or really good blueberries, like homegrown organic stuff.
Oh, yes.
Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Favorite vegetable?
Asparagus or artichokes. I like a steamed artichoke. It's really good. Yeah. Favorite
comfort food?
Oh man, it used to be mac and cheese, but my body just doesn't do it anymore. I like fried chicken, but I do it in the air fryer. So, so I try to make it a little healthier, but
nice.
Yeah.
And first thing that comes to your mind when you hear vegan?
Green, just the color green. But I also think yum, because some of my favorite meals are vegan meals, and I'm a meat eater even. So, I eat more vegetables than anything else. So vegan food's delicious.
And most importantly, where do you get your strength from?
Inside, in myself. I think, I can't remember if we talked about it on my show or not, but I do this thing where I go to the closet and I just disconnect from the world for a couple, like it's literally like 5-10 minutes. And I sit in my closet because I have a little wood. It's dark and quiet and like my phone's not in there and I can't hear the TV and it's just silent. And I just sit there for, a couple minutes and I let my mind wander. It's not like specific, like meditation kind of thing. That was supposed to be my own. It didn't really sound right. But, I just let my mind wander. And what I find is that I get answers to the things I'm struggling with, or I get some kind of clarity on the direction to head next, or what the next step is.
Yes.
And that's where I find my strength to move forward.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Nika, thank you so much for coming on with us today. We have had a wonderful time.
Oh, I love that. I could talk to you guys for hours. So
I
I'm
know.
super, super grateful. So thank you guys very, very much.